It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. You're listening to us in your neighborhood from coast to coast and around the world. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Joan Herman, author, speaker, and your host. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Joining me is Joe Vitale, also known as Mr. Fire. Joe helps people remove limitations so they can achieve personal power, wealth, and success. Joe is one of the stars of the film The Secret, and he's been featured extensively in broadcast and print media. He's the author of multiple best-selling books. His newest is entitled At Zero. Welcome, Joe. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this. My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Joe, today, as I said in the introduction, you help people achieve personal greatness. You help them reach their goals. You help them follow their dreams. But many years ago, your life was on a completely different path. I mean, you were homeless and you didn't see a bright future. How were you able to turn your life around? What was your turning point?
Well, that's a great question, and you're right. 35 years ago, I was in Dallas, late 1970s. I was homeless, managed to get out of that, but I was in poverty for 10-some years. And you got to remember, this is before the internet, before a lot of really great shows like this one, and I was really doing everything on my own. I'm trying to change my life. I'm trying to change from the inside out. And the only thing I knew to do, which is what I've done in my entire life, was read books. So I was living in the public libraries, and thank God for the public libraries. And those books were awakening me to how my beliefs were creating my reality. And that was a turning point. I realized, for example, that I was idolizing great authors like Jack London and Ernest Hemingway, not realizing that unconsciously I thought my life had to be as disturbed and disturbing as theirs in order for me to be a success. Both of those guys had very unhappy, miserable lives, and they both ended as suicides. Well, I made the mistake of modeling their lifestyle where I should have just modeled their writing style. And what I realized is that my beliefs were causing me to create this reality where I thought, because I believed it, that I had to suffer in order to be a success. And that was a wake-up. That was a turning point. It was a defining moment because I thought, wait a minute, there's bound to be authors out there who are very happy and healthy and prolific and productive and well-balanced. Let me find them and let me model their beliefs. Let me start to think in a different way. That whole idea of thinking in a different way, changing your mindset, which some people might take for granted because they've heard it so much, is actually the key to making your life different. And that's what happened to me, changing my beliefs.
So, Joe, you know that there's a lot of pain in the world today. The unemployment rate is up and there's so much illness, and people are really suffering for a variety of reasons. For someone who is at a dark point in his or her life, what would be something very tangible that you would recommend that person do to make this type of change in his or her life like you've done?
Wow, that's such a wonderful question. You know, I've written a lot of books, and in these books are techniques to help people do exactly what you're talking about, to get out of the muck and the mire. I'll tell you, it sounds a little bit naive, but this is a reality for me. I tell people, quit watching the mainstream news. The mainstream news is designed to put you into fear. It's programming, and it's called programming for a reason. It's programming your mind to think about lack and limitation and scarcity. If you actually had the news off, you would not know about unemployment. You would not know about some of the pain and suffering that the media goes and finds and then broadcasts right into your brain. So I tell people to turn that off, because when you start to separate yourself from it, you start to see that there's a different reality out there. While there are people who are suffering and they've lost their jobs and so forth, there are people who have gone through the same thing and transcended it. They used it as an opportunity to find a new business, a new calling, to find their passion, to make a lifestyle change. They found some sort of blessing in what previously looked like a dark cloud. So that's a very bottom line thing to do right now, is switch that off, pay more attention to shows like this, surround yourself more with positive people, read the positive books, and start doing more positive things.
Joe, your new book is called At Zero. What does it mean to live at zero?
Well, this is the advanced course in manifestation. You know, I was in the movie The Secret, and I've written books about the law of attraction and manifesting your reality. But there's something beyond all of that. And this is what I call the background power source behind all of us. There's this essence. In some spiritual circles, they call it the witness. This essence, this witness, this field of all possibilities is what I call zero. When you're at zero, there aren't any beliefs. There aren't any negativities. There aren't any sort of lack and limitation thoughts. It's zero. If there's any word to talk about this blank slate kind of a field of energy, it's probably unconditional love. The feeling of unconditional love is what's behind everything that's going on in our lives. Most of us don't notice it because we get caught up in reacting to life. We get caught up in reacting to whatever goes on through our day, reacting to the news or anything else. But behind all of that, there's this essence to life that I call zero. And when you are at zero, the title of my book, when you are at zero, you can live this life that is of magic and miracles, because now there's no limitations. The limitations are perceptions we see due to our beliefs. At zero, those beliefs have been dissolved. Now we're at the power source that gives life its very juice.
So, Joe, this sounds like a wonderful place. How do we get to this point of being at zero? When we're so taken in by all of the externals, how do we get to that point?
I love that question. Well, I talk about it in the book, At Zero, but I can narrate it a little bit right now very quickly for you and your listeners. What I do is guide people into that background awareness. For example, and I'm going to do this fairly quickly because of our time essence and time restrictions, but what I'll say is notice that we're thinking. You have a thought, you're thinking about what I'm saying, you're thinking about the show, you're thinking about the day. But if you pause, you can realize you're not your thought. You're somehow separate from your thoughts. You're a witness to your thoughts. So there's a bit of a separation there. I then say, notice you're in your body. Well, you have a body, and maybe you have to twist a little bit, maybe you have an ache or pain, maybe there's something you have to do to make yourself feel a little bit better in your body. But notice, you have a body. You are not your body. You are separate. You can observe it. You can be a witness to it. Then I say, notice your emotions. You might be happy, you might be sad, you might be grieving, you might be going through some sort of rush of an experience right now. Who knows? There's some sort of emotion that's right there. But notice, you can experience it. You are separate. You're a witness. Then I go on to tell people, if you're not your thoughts, and you're not your body, and you're not your emotions, what are you? That's the zero witness that's behind everything. The more they can identify with that zero state, the more powerful they will be in actually accomplishing more of what they want in their lives.
Joe, also in the book At Zero, you talk about Ho'oponopono. What is that, and what impact does that have on our life?
Oh, wow. This is the most powerful story of all, because Ho'oponopono is a Hawaiian healing technique. I learned it from one of the kahunas many years ago, and I wrote the first book on it ever to be published. That was called Zero Limits. The follow-up is the book we're talking about called At Zero. And what this is a very simple 4-step process. It's like a prayer. It's like a psalm. It's like a song. It's like a poem. But just 4 sentences that you say with a particular spirit of letting go, and you say it to your connection to God or divinity or to the universe, whatever word is the appropriate one for each person. And by doing this Ho'oponopono process, they can trigger a healing in themselves or even in others that they observe in their lives very quickly. And I have to say that how I heard this story was because I had heard many years ago of a therapist who helped heal an entire ward of mentally ill criminals. Now, this is amazing. These were mentally ill criminals in a Hawaii state hospital, and nobody was able to help them. These prisoners were being sedated, they were being shackled, doctors were quitting because they would give up, nurses would quit because they hated the place. And finally, out of desperation, the state brought in this unusual therapist who said, well, I'll work at this facility, but I want to use this technique called Ho'oponopono. And they said, we don't care what you do, we have to have a doctor on staff in order to be able to pay our bills and so forth. Well, this doctor went there, he used the Ho'oponopono process, and he helped heal every one of those patients. Within 4 years, the ward was empty and closed. Ho'oponopono is one of the most powerful, priceless, transformative things anybody can do, and it's as simple as can be.
Also in the book, you talk about something called cleaning, and this is deleting programs and beliefs. How do we go about doing this?
This is the missing secret in life. Most people that maybe they watched the movie The Secret or they read about the law of attraction and they sit and they visualize and they meditate, all well and good. But if they have any unconscious beliefs to their conscious intentions, the unconscious will delete the conscious intentions. And this is what I mean about we have to get in the unconscious and clean it and clear it. For example, if somebody sits there and says, well, I want to have more money in my life, and I'm doing the affirmations and visualizations, and I'm thinking positive, but I don't see any more money. It's very likely that in their unconscious mind they have beliefs about money, about lack and limitation. They may think things like, there's not enough money, I'll never have enough money for me, this will all work for everybody else, but it won't work for me. There's a long line of beliefs that will stop people from actually attracting money. That's what they want to clean out or clear out. I call it clearing because you're clearing the negative beliefs, the limiting beliefs in the unconscious. One of my favorite tools for doing that cleaning and clearing is Ho'oponopono. This is very simple. You're saying 4 phrases. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. That's it. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And you're saying them as a kind of prayer. You're saying them within yourself. You're not saying them to another person. You're saying them within yourself to your connection to your higher power. So I am saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you to the divine when I'm thinking of anything that I'm trying to achieve or attract and I'm feeling the frustration of it not seeming to work. I'm trying to clean and clear any of the blocks within me by saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you.
And, really, those are things that we should be saying over and over again anyway. I mean, those are powerful words.
I absolutely agree. I've often said to people, I said, look, can you imagine what kind of life we would have if internally we're walking around saying something like, I love you all the time? If we were just saying that, there'd be a little light in our eyes and there'd be a little smile on our face and there'd be less grumbling and complaining and people fighting or having road rage and all of that. If internally our self-talk was along the lines of, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. So I totally agree. Those 4 statements, just saying them to yourself internally will change your inner state.
Joe, in the book, you mentioned that Dr. Hugh Len said, a cancer cell is a cell that's lost its identity. You then go on to say that people are like that too because of their memories. What does that mean?
That's a big question there, and I go in depth in the book at Zero. And what we're referring to there is that we all are born, we come into this life with memories, meaning we have some built-in programming. And I know that some people might disagree with that, but it appears that people, babies, for example, seem to have personalities before they've gone and grown very much. Dr. Hugh Len, who's the therapist who taught me Ho'oponopono, says in the Hawaiian tradition, we believe that those memories come from generations past, that actually since the beginning of time and the first people that walked on the earth, all of their memories come in and they're all downloaded into us. So when we're born, we're not a complete blank slate. We obviously start learning more things. We get more programming from our parents, from family and friends, from the school system, from the culture, from the government. All of that starts programming us even more. But Dr. Hugh Len says we come in with memories, and those memories aren't necessarily going to serve us. There may have been a memory, for example, from a great-grandfather who didn't do everything right for his health or her health or whatever it happened to be, and then you experience the result, the reaction of what that person had lived. I'm somewhat into bodybuilding and physical fitness, and what a great bodybuilder had to have, he had to have his heart worked on. And he said, why in the world did I have to have my heart worked on? I've been eating right for 60 years, and I've been working out for 60 years. Why does my heart give out now? And the doctor said, it's nothing you did. It's what your grandparents did that you inherited. So in Dr. Hulen's statement, he's saying that we come in with memories. He would call that a memory. And I would say what we want to do is delete those memories. We want to clean them and clear them. How? With the Ho'oponopono process I've described.
The book is At Zero by Joe Vitale. If you'd like more information, you can visit his website, joevitale.com. Joe, in about 30 seconds or less, what would be the one thing you would like our listeners to leave this interview with? What would you like them to remember?
That your life can change when you work from the inside out. Look at your beliefs, ask yourself where you might have limiting beliefs, and then begin to change them, because you deserve to have a passionate, happy, prosperous life, and you can have it by doing a few simple things beginning today.
Joe, thank you so much for being here with us today. I hope our listeners walk away with saying those 4 things over and over again. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And thank you, Joe, for being here.
Oh, thank you, and Godspeed to all your listeners. This has been great. Go for your dreams.
We'll be right back. It's time for this week's Medical Minutes. Joining me today is Dr. Bob Arnott, the host of the Dr. Danger reality TV series and the author of 14 books, including The Aztec Diet. Dr. Arnott has been a medical correspondent for NBC Nightly News, The Today Show, CBS Evening News, 60 Minutes, and CBS This Morning. Welcome, Dr. Arnott. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, listen, I'm glad to join you. I love the title of your show. All about attitude, isn't it?
It is, and thank you for saying that, and thank you for being here.
Well, I'm delighted. You know, the big thing about changing attitude is a lot of people, they want to do it and they can't do it. I really think that diet is the first step, and here's why. You take any overweight person, any place in America, and I will guarantee you on blood tests that they are, in the words of a Harvard professor, a big inflammatory mess inside. Inflame heart and liver and lung and intestines, but most importantly, the inflammation in the brain kills off those neurotransmitters that make us feel great. And that means you want to change your attitude, but you can't. What the Aztec diet will do for you is it changes your attitude because it changes the mix of neurotransmitters in your brain so you do feel great and you can change your attitude. Because as you've said for years, attitude is everything.
Doctor, according to your book, 2 out of 3 Americans eat diets loaded with carb bombs and flamethrowers. What are carb bombs and flamethrowers, and what do they do to the body?
So carb bombs are those foods that we think are healthy for us, we think are on a great diet, but what they do is that when they hit your intestine, they explode into your bloodstream with a high blood sugar, which causes you to feel momentarily great and then crash. So it might be pasta, it might be bagels, foods that don't seem like they're that unhealthy for you, but as you add those up over the day, produce what we call an enormous glucose load. It's a scale, it's a load of glucose that sits on your system that makes it hard for your system to function. And with the soaring blood sugar levels, helps you gain weight at an outrageous rate.
How does the Aztec diet differ from what Americans are currently consuming? What are the foods that are at the foundation of what the Aztecs ate?
So it's the polar opposite of what we most eat. That is, most foods fill you very little, so you feel miserable and you have to eat all day long, whereas the Aztec diet fills you up. Most American diets are very high on these carb bombs, so you're continually pouring the stuff into your system, dumping the stuff in your system, whereas the Aztec diet runs a very, very smooth blood sugar level. Most diets pour inflammation into your system, where we basically do the opposite. We pull the inflammation off. Most diets are very poor on the micronutrients, which is why we have this continual hunger, nagging hunger all day long, even though we're eating more than we should. Whereas with the Aztec diet, you have an incredible amount of nutrients that really satisfy that basic hunger. And most importantly, it absolutely does make your brain feel great. Now, in terms of foods, here's how I solve the basic problem of dieters, and that is I have a smoothie in this morning. I have foods that you might ordinarily say, gee, I'd never eat that. You know, kale, collard greens, spinach is an example. But here's the secret. I freeze them, and then I embed them in a smoothie that has blueberries and honey and banana and cantaloupe. So it tastes like the best smoothie you've ever had in your whole life. But it has staggering amounts of vegetables in there that you can't taste, so you're willing to drink it.
And I do something similar to that in the morning, except I use almond milk, banana, some berries, then I throw in some Greek yogurt, and now I throw in chia seeds because I've learned so much about them. So am I at least starting off the day the proper way?
You're starting on that's a great base. I love everything in there. But what I would do is I'd add the kale. The reason is that on a scale of 0 to 1,000, kale ranks at the tippy top of that scale as a healthy food, along with collard greens. So you could take those, freeze them, and then add that to that smoothie, and you'll feel even better.
Doctor, I just mentioned that I put chia into a smoothie, and I learned about chia a year ago when I was working with a nutritionist. And these seeds, chia seeds, have been around for thousands of years, and they were even once used as medicine. So what has happened that has brought the miracle of these seeds to the forefront again?
So it's a great question. The chia 500 years ago was the key food that the Aztecs used when they went into battle against the Spanish. And the Spanish marveled at their ability to go weeks with this one food because it provided, the protein, the micronutrients, the calories, everything that they needed to fight. And so the Spanish took and they burned the chia fields to the ground. So they went out of agricultural production 500 years ago and really didn't come back until the beginning of the 1960s when some of the health food fanatics started to grow in little bits and pieces. But it wasn't until about 5 years ago that they figured out how to really start to grow large quantities of it, and that scientists became interested enough in it to do the research to prove that it really works. So it's a food that's disappeared. It's vanished, but has now come back and is coming back with a vengeance. I think it's the best starter healthy food in the world. And by that I mean people take a little bit of it, they take a couple scoops, they start to feel good, and they're willing to say, boy, I feel this good, I'd like to feel terrific, what else do I need?
Sticking with chia for a moment, you wrote in the book that chia mimics weight loss surgery. How does that happen, and is that a viable alternative for some patients?
It is, and I think it's a much, much better alternative to surgery. So we've looked at weight loss surgery over the last 20 years or so. The hot new cutting-edge therapy is that there are many experimental companies and universities that are using mechanical devices in the stomach to basically fill it up so you don't feel like eating, artificial satiety. What the chia seed does is it grows to roughly 7 times its size in your stomach so that it basically is like a mechanical block. It's like having the surgery. It's like having the mechanical device, except that it's completely natural and it's unbelievably healthy. So I think it's the best alternative to surgery.
In about 30 seconds or less, what would be one thing you want our listeners to walk away with from this interview?
I want your brain to soar. I want your brain to feel the best it ever has, so you can imagine doing incredible things with your life. And you could, of course, take Joan's advice, that is, and change your attitude to change your life, but change your attitude through diet first.
Thank you so much for being here, Doctor.
Thank
it was
you,
a
Joan.
pleasure
Thanks for a
speaking
great
with
show.
you. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Chef Todd, your healthy cooking expert. Chia seeds have been around since 3500 BC. The seeds have now become recognized for their many nutritional benefits. Chia seeds are packed with omega-3 fatty acids, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Eating chia seeds as a part of a healthy diet may lower cholesterol, triglycerides, and blood pressure. Chia seeds can be sprinkled over salads or cereal or stirred into yogurt. They do not need to be ground and do not go rancid the way flax seeds do. The seeds absorb liquid when soaked and can be blended into juices, smoothies, and incorporated into almost any recipe. A great vegetarian recipe that incorporates chia seed is my crusted chia tofu with Asian slaw. In this dish, tofu is coated with chia seeds, sesame seeds, curry, onion powder, salt, and pepper. The blocks are sautéed in sesame seed oil and served with a delicious Asian slaw that is made up of broccoli, scallions, and cilantro with homemade dressing. Easy to make and good for your health. For the complete recipe and nutritional information, visit cookingwithcheftodd.com.
We all want to live a happy, productive life, but sometimes we just need a little help. Our Coach on Call experts provide strategies to help you live your best life now. Joining me today is Karen Chow, an author, media personality, CEO, and founder of Light My Fire, the aviation-inspired company that mentors women to fly and live outside their limits where personal freedom resides. Karen describes herself as your co-pilot to destination freedom. Welcome, Karen. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Joan. Always a pleasure.
Karen, today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, paying it forward. It's something that I believe that everyone should do. Why do you think some people have a hard time paying it forward while others give of themselves so freely?
You know, Joan, we know, you and I, that giving emanates from the heart, the mind, and the soul. You know the feeling of joy when you give someone a present and on their opening the present you watch with eager anticipation, and then you see the joy on their face? Well, even choosing the gift matters, right? Because you're giving it a lot of thought. You're thinking about that particular person while selecting something that's going to make them smile, make them happy, and you feel good about it. Paying it forward is the same thing. It's about giving without expectation of reciprocation. A smile, a tear, a thank you, that suffices. Giving should make you feel proud and happy. And anything more than that in the way of expectation, it serves to feed the ego. And when the ego is involved, the joy goes missing. And it happens enough times, you no longer feel compelled to pay it forward, unless you give without expectations whatsoever. So you think about it. When you give a child a toy and light up, you light up. Do you expect the toy back from the child? No. So neither should you with a friend, an adult, a loved one, or a stranger even. But I think that in answer to your question, some people have a hard time paying it forward because I think they're lacking something inside, a motivating factor, and that could just be as simple as joy from within.
So, Karen, can you offer us some suggestions on how to begin the process of paying it forward?
Well, you have to find that joy, right? Because without that joy, you're going to sit there and not even know what paying forward means. But if you feel like, okay, I've got to change my life, and I've got to start giving, because you give first before you receive. And if you want to receive love or goodness or joy into your life, you have to start by giving. If you've never given to a stranger before, it can be a challenge, that's for sure. But remember, it's what you tell yourself. If you make something a routine, the routine becomes a habit. So I would say start with something small, like simply paying for the coffee for the person behind you in line. Or if you're walking by someone you feel could use the extra change in your pocket, I would offer it to them. You might find yourself overthinking at first, but eventually you get comfortable, and then you start to feel rewarded with happiness and everything that makes you feel good, and it makes you actually feel good about yourself that you're making someone happy. So the mindful thing is to be mindful about it. We're going back to mindfulness again. I see people who haphazardly throw a quarter in a can, and an hour later they forget they did it. It should never be like tossing change into an empty cup or into a trash can, but rather a quarter into a fountain. There should be mindful intention behind it, because mindful intention leads to bigger things. That's a good way to start the process, to get comfortable in giving back and paying it forward.
Karen, thank you so much for being with us again. If our listeners would like to get more information, you can visit KarenChow.com. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided are the opinions of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit cyacyl.com. While on the site, read our digital magazine, listen to past shows on demand, read my blog, take part in the book club, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.